what? If I was a quarterback and I knew I was going to play for like 2 or 3 years, this ain't 1980.
Not to mention,
you don't wait till your junior or senior year to play anymore. So if you're J.J. McCarthy and Cade plays this year, I mean, you're just out.
Did you ever think maybe J.J. isn't as good as supposedly he is?
Hey, so Braylon, you were talking about Jim Harbaugh, and you've seen it before, right? You've seen where Jim Harbaugh has chosen loyalty over who's the better player. And it seems like we only talk about that at the quarterback position. Now, maybe that's fair or unfair because we're not talking about the right tackle competition as much as the quarterback. So we really don't know that. But it always feels like whether it's Jim Harbaugh or insert college coach or high school coach or pro coach here, sometimes it's loyalty over talent with the kid that plays. And I went back because remember last week, Stick got himself in the line of fire with Michigan fans saying, well, of course now you
lobbed on the Brady.
Yeah, you what do they say? You claim Tom Brady.
Yeah, you claim
it's
Tom
so great.
Brady.
I love it.
He
Good
hardly
for
played.
Stick. Good for Stick. But I went back the first 7 games of the season. Brady played the first quarter. Henson played the entire second quarter, and then whoever was hotter played the second half. And they did that through the Michigan State game, and then Brady took over the rest of the way. I don't know if that works, man, because chances are you're going to get burned by a game or two like Michigan did that season, specifically at Michigan State. So you're always going to lose a game based on that decision because you're not playing the best guy. And two, and I'll give you the floor on this because you brought it up and you are lockstep in it. It creates what?
Factions.
Yep. Factions.
It creates factions. Even before we start talking about factions, which I'm going to see AEW tonight, talking about factions.
Well,
my boy
AEW.
D-Mac. AEW.
Oh,
you guys getting in the ring
guys.
against AJ Styles?
I might jump up there, man. No, it'd be Chris Jericho.
And
Kenny Omega. But just going back and viewing it that way, and that is a recipe for disaster sometimes because how many times have you seen a guy that's a player, that's a bona fide number 1 starter, and he's just having a bad first quarter. He's just having a bad second quarter. Like it takes him a second to heat up, and then it's the comeback. Like that's what sport is about sometimes. And when you're playing around, hey, you do a quarter, I do a quarter, and whoever hotter. And sometimes like things happen to get you hot. Sometimes it's not your fault. Sometimes it's the play. Sometimes the defense is necessarily right on point. But what it does create is factions. I remember my senior year, I came back to play with Matt Gutierrez. Matt Gutierrez out of Warren De La Salle, out in California, the undefeated high school. They got movies on them, etc. Amani Toomer went there as well. And Maurice Jones-Drew was his running back on that team. I came back my senior year, not only because I thought I could get a little bit better, maybe a lot bit better, but also because I knew I had this quarterback in Matt Gutierrez. I trusted him. I've seen him for 3 years. I've been there with him for 3 years. I've watched him. I'm ready. Chad Henne was a 5-star recruit. Chad Henne comes there as well. So in training camp, I mean, Steve Breston's a PA guy. So you got Steve who's liking catching passes from Chad Henne. You got some guys going over there, the younger guys, Carl Tapp. You got me and Calvin Bell.
Carl
like I'm over here with Matt Gutierrez.
I love that team.
I'm over here with Matt Gutierrez.
What happened to Gutierrez? I mean, he was like.
So he transfers to JUCO or small school out in Montana somewhere. Balls out there, and he actually ended up getting drafted in the 7th round to the Patriots.
For a minute. Yeah.
I think I drafted the 7th round to the Patriots. But going back to that, there were factions. There were half the locker room was talking about Chad Henne, the young phenom out of Pennsylvania. The other half of the locker room was talking about Matt Gutierrez, a.k.a. John B., because he could sing and look like John B. So you're breaking the locker room up, and now I want Matt Gutierrez. I'm the number 1 wide receiver, but then our defense like Chad Henne. And defense wins championships. Michigan's one of the defensive schools, so it was a lot of arguing going on from the time of June until the time of August. Unfortunately, Goose tore his labrum in the shoulder in training camp, and so he didn't play. I mean, I think it worked out for everybody involved. But you created that locker room separation, and guys like, no, we should have this guy. And then quarterbacks are seeing that. You don't want to put your team in unnecessary adversity. You don't want to put them in a locker room where they're going to have to deal with this. So factions are a real thing, my friend.
And Chad Henne's still playing in the NFL.
And that's something he's
got him back to the Super Bowl.
Patrick Mahomes back up in Kansas City.
Won a playoff game.
He did last year.
Yeah.
2 years ago.
2 years ago.
Yeah.
To get to the Super Bowl.
Beat Baker.
And I believe, and
that's a hell of a story.
This isn't my forte, but doesn't
Barely.
Cade have this year and next year available for?
Come again?
Doesn't Cade have 2 more years of eligibility?
He does, because I think he does.
He's got the COVID year.
So if you're J.J. McCarthy and Cade plays this year, I mean, you're just out. I mean,
No wonder CJ didn't even sniff it here. No wonder.
And that's a good question. Is what does a year look like for Jim Harbaugh where he picks Cade and
what's
Cade
the next 2 years look like?
What does it look like for J.J. McCarthy? Like, is J.J. McCarthy excited and happy? Because I saw his interview that he did. He's very excited. He's made friends. He's on the journey, trusting the process. He's saying all the right things. What does another year look like if he looks exactly like he did last year? They win the Big Ten. He plays 5, 6, 7 plays a game. Like, what does that look like?
And conversely, what does it look like for Dante Moore? I mean, these kids.
What story are you saying?
These kids want to come play, but again, these kids want to come play. They see Bryce Young. They see C.J. Stroud.
Who wants to come here to hand the ball off? Oh, sorry. Wrong thing.
Oh, you're such a jerk.
Too soon.
You are such a jerk.
Too soon. But that's a real question.
You know, I mean, why would Dante Moore, aside from, you know, if he grew up wanting to go to Michigan or anything like, you know, if Ryan Armani was getting recruited, I wouldn't care who was ahead of me.
Yeah.
If I had an opportunity to go to Michigan, that was just, I bled maize and blue. I was going to Michigan. Same with you. But if I was a quarterback and I knew I was going to play for like 2 or 3 years, this ain't 1980.
Not to mention,
you don't wait till your junior or senior year to play anymore.
Not to mention, not only that, but that means that I'm gonna be sitting on the bench in November when it's cold. At the end of October when it's cold. December when it's cold. Well, I guess December they play indoors, but that's
it's a good problem to have. Let's say that. I'd rather have this problem than not have any quarterbacks.
It's a good problem to have this year. But how long did it take us to get that 5-star quarterback in J.J. McCarthy? How many years were we waiting for Jim to snag one of those 5-star quarterbacks? Now you snag a 5-star quarterback, and guess what? You don't want to play him. You don't want to start him. But here's the other thing, and I will be on Jim's side on this. Sometimes it's not about the talent. And that's why sometimes you stay loyal to a certain individual. Cade McNamara is a guy that can win games. Cade McNamara is probably a leader. I hear it in his voice, especially after that Nebraska win. You saw him in that interview after Nebraska win. The Wisconsin win was another one. You saw him there. Sometimes the intangibles outweigh the talent. So that's another
without
thing they're probably
question.
dealing with.
Can I give you a little maybe reality check?
Sure.
Did you ever think maybe JJ isn't as good as supposedly he is?
So I thought about that, and the answer is no, because I've seen him play.
Oh, you?
Yeah.
Okay.
But, you know, Braylon, we've gotten to 5-star kids before. I didn't think Rashawn Gary was any good, to be honest with you, at Michigan. Now, he's a better pro than he was at Michigan, and that could have been scheme, player development.
2 things. You named, you named it. The second thing you said was right. It's player development. The other thing, he didn't like to work. Like, he didn't like to work, and nobody was forcing him to work. So when you don't like to work, nobody's forcing you to work, and they just keep kissing your ass and telling you the man. Meanwhile, he was the 3rd best D lineman on that team. Wormley and Maurice Hurst were better.
And again, we've seen 5-star guys come in. Remember Sam McGuffey? You know, we've seen 5-star guys come and go and not wow us.
Was Sam 5 stars?
I don't know if he was or not, but
he's a YouTube sensation.
He's a YouTube sensation. Fine, but again,
he'd fit in good here.
There have been a number of 4- and 5-star guys that have been heralded players that come to Michigan, and you're like, who's this guy? That has not been the case for J.J. McCarthy. All of us, have seen this kid do things that are unique at Michigan. Guys don't throw the ball 60, 70 yards in the air on a rollout like he did against Western Michigan or whoever that was.
It was Western.
You know, he could take a hit. He can scramble. Cade McNamara, and I love Cade. I hate anytime you're comparing, you feel like you got to knock the other guy down. But how many times did Cade McNamara on an RPO hand that ball off up the middle, when you got the entire outside to run for a first down or something like that.
And the defense knew he was going to do it.
It's plays like that that just drive you friggin' nuts. And it does separate beating Ohio State on the road or losing a close game.
Yeah, and you're right. And just to add to that, I think the big thing that we saw was, do you know how hard it is to not be in the rhythm of the game, to not be in the flow of the game, and then but then the coach grabs you and says, hey, let's run that play we were working on. And then you got to go in the game in a moment, which you've been on the sideline, and you got to find the rhythm and the flow in the span of 45 seconds. And he did that so well every time he was asked. He went in there, dropped a dime, or he made a play, or he took a hit. The only bad play I haven't saw wasn't even his fault because he wasn't supposed to be in the damn game.